The role of native language in the acquisition of a second language is an interesting area of investigation in the field of second language acquisition. Though it has a rocky history because it has been a controversial point in the field of second language acquisition, and we'll find various views coming from various researchers in the field. We'll look deep into these views in coming few minutes. This subfield of second language acquisition is also known as language transfer, which involves transfer of some elements of language from the first language of the learners to the learning of their second language. It is generally believed in second language acquisition that the learners of a second language rely heavily on their first language. They transfer various elements of first language, structures, words, and other features of first language to their second language. And this may sometimes be facilitating and may possibly other times be a kind of trouble for the learners. A huge focus on the transfer from first language to the second language was made during the movement which focused on the production of teaching materials based on contrastive analysis of the two languages. Two languages imply the first and the second language. Contrastive analysis actually implied that we should analyze both languages by comparing them deeply and see which areas could be troublesome for the learners, and the teachers should prepare materials in line with such an analysis so that the learners may not find much difficulty. Let's have a look at some of the comparisons of first and second language. This comparison could be divided into three stages of learning. First one is initial state. Initial state in first language acquisition is heavily an innate ability. This is what is generally believed, that people are born with some natural ability to learn a language, and that is usually their first language. But we are not clear at the moment that innate ability is still relevant with the learning of second language. Is that innate ability still available when we are grown up and attempt to learn a second language? Well, these are important questions to be answered. Regarding this matter, there are few point of views coming from researchers, or you could call them some propositions or assumptions. The first assumption carries that, yes, people can still benefit from this innate ability, and this ability is available even at the initial state of second language learning. Second assumption regarding this is that some parts or elements of this innate ability are available in case of second language learning, and some are lost in the process. Argument 3 tells us that there is no innate ability or some previous knowledge available to us at the initial state of second language learning. So we are still in the process of finding a final answer to such assumptions. They have been widespread, but still not scientifically tested to the extent that we could believe them blindly. The prior knowledge of L1 is definitely responsible for L1, L2 learning in many ways, and this is what comes from various studies. But as I mentioned earlier, we are still in the process of finding some viable answers in this regard. We move to intermediate state. This state involves the developmental or sequence of the development of a second language. And this is the stage we develop an interlanguage. During this stage, we can find that the process of maturation happens in case of first language, but in case of second language, this may not happen. So we have to see the process of intermediate state in case of a second language learning without the maturation process. And we could see the various kind of transfer matures at this stage. There could possibly be a positive transfer, which means that the transfer of a structure from L1 facilitates the understanding or the learning of L2. The transfer could possibly be negative as well, which means that a structure of first language may hinder the learning of second language. Overall, cross-linguistic influences do have an impact on the learning of a second language. In the final state, we see the outcome of learning. In case of first language, we could see it's similar to native-like competence or the native competence, precisely speaking. But in case of second language, this is not sure. People may not get a native-like competence in the final state of their learning a second language. And there may also be a strong variation of competence among learners. Some learners may be more competent than others. This is an important feature of second language acquisition.